Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel. In modern healthcare, patients often hear terms like evidence-based medicine, clinical guidelines, or expert consensus. Understanding these concepts is no longer just the responsibility of doctors or researchers. For patients navigating an increasingly complex healthcare system, knowing how these frameworks work can help make medical decisions clearer, safer, and more transparent. To begin, let's start with one of the most important concepts in modern medicine, evidence-based medicine, often called EBM. It is an approach of healthcare that emphasizes making clinical decisions based on the best available scientific evidence. In simple terms, it means doctors rely not only on experience or tradition, but on carefully conducted research studies that evaluate whether treatments actually work and whether they are safe. Over the past several decades, medical science has produced a numerous amount of research. Thousands of clinical trials are conducted every year around the world. Some studies compare new drugs to existing therapies. Others evaluate surgical procedures, medical devices, or preventive strategies. Evidence-based medicine attempts to organize this vast body of information and translate it into practical guidance for real-world clinical care. One of the most visible products of evidence-based medicine is the clinical guideline. Clinical guidelines are systematically developed recommendations designed to help doctors and patients make informed healthcare decisions for specific medical conditions. Rather than being written by a single expert, these guidelines are typically developed by panels of specialists who carefully review all the available research evidence. The process behind guideline development is often rigorous and methodical. Researchers gather the best available studies, including randomized controlled trials, large observational studies, and meta-analyses that combine results from multiple trials. Each piece of evidence is evaluated for quality, reliability, and relevance. Based on this evaluation, recommendations are assigned different levels of strength depending on how strong the supporting evidence is. The hierarchy of evidence is an important feature of modern clinical guidelines. By grading evidence in this way, guidelines provide clinicians with a clearer understanding of how confident they can be in a particular recommendation. The purpose of these guidelines is not to replace the physician's judgment, but rather to support it. In the past, medical practice could vary widely between hospitals, regions, or individual doctors. Two patients with the same condition might receive very different treatments depending on where they lived or who they saw. Clinical guidelines help reduce this variation by identifying therapies that have been proven to provide real benefit. Biomedicine does not always have perfect evidence. In many areas of healthcare, especially with rare diseases or newly emerging treatments, there may not yet be enough high-quality studies to support firm recommendations. This is where another important concept comes into play, expert consensus. Expert consensus refers to guidance developed by a group of specialists who collectively evaluate the available information and agree on best practices when strong scientific evidence is limited. Instead of relying primarily on large clinical trials, consensus documents draw heavily on the clinical experience, judgment, and expertise of recognized authorities in the field. In a sense, expert consensus serves as a bridge between scientific discovery and everyday clinical practice. When research evidence has not yet fully matured, consensus guidance helps physicians navigate uncertainty while waiting for stronger data to emerge. Yet both play an important role in modern healthcare. The difference between evidence-based guidelines and expert consensus is important. Guidelines generally represent higher levels of scientific certainty because they rely heavily on rigorous research. Consensus statements, on the other hand, often reflect the best available knowledge in areas where research is still evolving. Beyond influencing how doctors practice medicine, these frameworks also play a major role in the world of health insurance. Insurance companies, sometimes referred to as payers, must determine which treatments they will cover and which they will not. To make these decisions consistently and fairly, insurers rely heavily on evidence-based clinical guidelines. If a treatment is recommended by well-established guidelines, it is more likely to be considered medically necessary and therefore eligible for reimbursement. On the other hand, if a treatment falls outside established guidelines, insurance coverage can become more complicated. Insurers may question whether the therapy is medically necessary, experimental, or insufficiently supported by evidence. In some cases, claims may be denied or require additional review before approval. In such situations, physicians may rely on expert consensus documents or supporting medical literature to explain why the treatment is appropriate. Patients who understand this process are often better prepared to navigate insurance approval, prior authorization requests, or appeals if coverage is initially denied. This concept is often referred to as shared decision-making. In modern healthcare, patients are encouraged to actively participate in discussion about their treatment options. Asking questions about whether a recommended therapy aligns with the current guidelines can be an important part of that conversation. Another key point patients should understand is that the medical knowledge evolves continuously. New studies are published every year, and the scientific understanding changes as new evidence emerges. For patients researching their own conditions online, this means that not all information remains accurate forever. Checking whether guidance is recent and based on updated evidence can help avoid confusion or outdated advice. Ultimately, for patients, understanding of these concepts offers more than just academic knowledge, and for every patient seeking care, these frameworks quietly work behind the scenes, helping ensure that the medical practice today is not only compassionate, but also guided by the best knowledge our society has to offer. That's all for today. If you find this content interesting and helpful, don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.